If you want a fully powered mini PC that can handle office and media tasks with ease, together with fantastic retro gaming capabilities, then have a look at this MeLE Overclock X5 Mini. Let's see what it can do. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. In this video, we're going to take a look at this mini PC, which has been sent out to me by MeLE. Now this is their Overclock X5 i5 mini PC, which is a real powerhouse of a computer in an amazingly small form factor. So let's see what this sleek little box can do. So first off, let's have a look at what you get. So in the box we have the mini PC itself, a power brick to drive it, a VESA mounting plate, and a user manual. Now this power brick's output is rated at 19 volts at 6.32 amps, giving it 120 watts of output power. Now although it's quite big compared to the actual processor box, I think it's actually great that they have left a lot of leeway with this so that it can very comfortably power the computer. Now, as we'll discuss in a while, the X5 is designed to run the processor at high power, so we really don't want to be skimping on the power source. Moving on to the processor box, we've got our Core i5 12450H processor powered PC. Now the case measures 180 by 103 by 31 millimeters, so it's amazingly small for what's inside it. Now it's not as small as the quieter 4C PC that I reviewed a while ago, but this unit has much more processing power and quite a few more features. Now looking around the case, we've got our power button and microphone on the front surface. To the right hand side then, we've got a micro SD card slot and a 3.5mm stereo headphone and microphone combined jack plug. We also then have two 10 gigabit per second USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, and then a third 5 gigabit per second USB 3.2 Gen 1 port. Now around the back then you'll find that there are two Ethernet ports. Now one of these is a gigabit port and the second then is a 2.5 gigabit port. There's also an audio output jack and then of course the power supply socket. On the back then we've also got then two full-sized HDMI 2.0 ports, and these both support then full 4K output. The last two USB-C ports then both support the 10 gigabit per second USB 3.2 Gen 2, but they also then have DisplayPort 1.4 built in to give you a further two 4K video outputs. The second of these ports also doubles as a PD-enabled power input, so you can actually power this computer over USB-C if you want to, though I would probably suggest that this model, that the supplied power brick would be your best bet if you plan to put it under any sort of load. If you're just running it sort of as a basic sort of office machine, then maybe the USB-C port would work, otherwise I would stick with the power brick. But then of course it gives us a full 4K video outputs. Now if we could move around then to the final side, we've obviously got then this Kensington lock slot, and that just lets you of course then attach the device firmly to your desk. Now overall the construction of this unit is very good quality, using a rigid plastic box with a metal base plate that also doubles as a heatsink then for the memory and SSD. We've also then of course on this base plate got VESA mounting holes so that you can attach it then to the back of a monitor or some other mount. Now the case is also where you'll notice the big difference between this particular model and then the quieter models. So the X5 Overclock is designed to push the i5 processor inside it by allowing it to stay at its boost speed for longer periods rather than actually increasing the 4.4 GHz clock speed. Now this pushes the thermal design power or TDP of the unit up to the full 45 watts, giving it better overall performance, but then of course at the cost of generating extra heat. So if you look at the sides of the unit, you'll see that almost half the volume of this box is dedicated to heat dissipation, with vents either side, and a good-sized fan and heatsink mounted in the central area of the circuit board underneath the cover. Now, this does of course mean that this PC will generate some fan noise, but to be honest, it's no more than you'd expect on any sort of laptop, and it does work very efficiently to keep the processor temperatures down. So even if you are gaming for longer sessions, you're not going to be hitting any thermal limiting to slow the system down. So this device then is a premium model for the MeLE range, so we do expect it to have a high specification, and to be honest, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. So as I said before, the processor is one of these 12th generation Intel i5 12450H processors, which is a 2022 model, and it's clocked at a base frequency of 2 GHz, boosting up to 4.4 GHz. Now, as we've already discussed, the system is designed to allow it to run at these higher frequencies for longer to keep that peak performance available. So this processor contains 8 cores and 12 threads. So 4 of these cores are high performance cores that can peak at that 4.4 GHz to give you that more processing power. And the other 4 then are what we call power efficient cores that have a 3.3 GHz boost speed, but they are designed then to allow the system to greatly reduce its power consumption while it's performing less taxing tasks, such as sort of general office work and so on. Now, all of this is teamed with up to 64 GB of DDR4 RAM, which is in a dual channel configuration through the 2 DIMM sockets on the circuit board here. For storage then, you have 2 M.2 2280 slots. Now one of these, which comes populated with your hard drive when you buy it, is a 4-lane PCIe slot, which will support PCIe 4.0 at up to a quoted 7.8 gigabytes per second transfer speeds. So you're going to get some really fast hard disk access times on this one. The second M.2 slot is designed more for data storage, and that actually has an SSD interface rather than the NVMe interface. But that will still give you up to 2 terabytes of space that you can attach in here, but then of course at the slower 600 megabytes per second transfer speeds, which is the normal SSD transfer speed. So wireless communications then is provided by a swappable M.2 card, which as you can see here would sit underneath that second hard drive. So the one supplied in the unit, it does give you then Bluetooth 5.2 and also then dual band Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6. But if you wanted to, you can replace this with an alternative card if you need to actually get hold of the faster Wi-Fi 7 signals. So overall then, this is a very well-spec'd mini PC, with lots of expansion options both internally, and also then through its good array of fast external USB ports, you can start to plug lots of other devices into it. But let's move on then to actually using this machine to see if it would fit your use case. So if we start with some overall benchmark scores, we can see here in Geekbench that we do get some good performance scores on both single and dual core. So a similar Ryzen 5800 processor would score slightly higher on the multi-core benchmarks at around about the 10,000 mark, but our MeLE unit here is generally able to hold its own within this sort of sector. On the graphics power side then, the unit scored 10,065 as you can see, which is about what you'd expect for the integrated Intel UHD graphics chips. So again, that's not going to give you high power graphics, but as we'll see later on, it's more than enough for what I in particular want to use this device for. On the storage side then, everything works pretty much as you would expect from both the NVMe drive and the internal SSD drives. And then connecting any of these obviously over the USB ports externally using adapters, they work as you would expect as well. So all of this then should translate to a very capable office or general home computer that can cope with a little bit of light PC gaming. And indeed then, if we jump then onto some sort of actual software applications, so any office software, well, you've got no lag at all or any issues with that sort of stuff. If you want to sort of look at some media, so YouTube will of course run at up to 4K with no problems, and any sort of video streaming services such as Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, all of those are going to run perfectly well at 4K as well. So really, if you're looking for a small form factor general purpose PC, either as an office system or as a home media system, well then this really is going to be ideal. It's a nice small form factor. The fan noise, even under load, is not intrusive at all, especially if you were burying this in behind a piece, behind a TV or something like that. You really wouldn't notice it at all. So say that is a really useful little machine. We can of course then try pushing it a little bit more and trying out some photo and video editing again. But again, as I was using through here, both in Photoshop and in Premiere Pro, those are the software I use to generate my videos, I didn't see any issues at all. And in fact, we were getting some really good performance out of those. So again, for all of these tasks, we're really relying on the processor. So these are processor-heavy tasks rather than graphics-heavy tasks. And of course, this machine is more than capable of standing up to that sort of work. But if we now jump on to some PC gaming, this of course is where we're going to start to see the MeLE X5 hitting its limits. So the integrated graphics that we have in here, so although they are sort of fairly new Intel UHD graphics processors, it just really isn't up to modern gaming on the AAA titles. So of course it is going to cope with most of the games if you're prepared to lower the resolutions. But again, this isn't really what this PC is designed for. So if you are looking for a sort of mini gaming PC, well then this really isn't going to be the one for you. However then, if you're like me, you would be looking at this computer with a view to some retro gaming. And this actually is where this MeLE X5 really does start to shine. To be honest, the results that I found were so good that I will be making a full video using this PC to show you how to set up everything to create a complete retro gaming and media PC for your TV. But for now, let's just have a look at what sorts of things this is capable of. So as usual, all the older 8, 16, 32 and even the 64-bit consoles and computers, they all work flawlessly, along with full arcade gaming and running things like the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1 at higher than native resolutions, so you can get some really smooth and some really higher definition gameplay out of those older systems. Moving on to the GameCube, which is always a harder one to get running at full speed. Well, this is handled with ease, and we even have enough processing power left over to again increase the graphics resolution beyond the native and play your GameCube games at up to 1080p resolution. So this does make them look great and well beyond what the original console could manage. Similarly, Nintendo Wii, which again is as taxing as the GameCube, can do exactly the same thing. So here I'm playing Super Mario Brothers in 1080p, and to be honest, it really does look amazing and really adds to the whole Nintendo Wii gaming and of course the GameCube gaming as well. Now moving up a further generation then, up to the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, well this little mini PC does take both of these in its stride. Now the Xbox is a harder system to emulate, and on the quieter PC that we reviewed before, that's where the system fell over. But with this one here, at native resolutions, you can play even the most taxing games, such as Halo 2, which is on screen now. And again, that's running at pretty much full speed, with no real sort of glitches or slowdowns as we play around the system. Again, trying to take it up to a sort of higher resolution, it does start to glitch a wee bit, and you will get little sort of patches where the frame rate will drop. But say, keeping on native resolution, we are running as it should do here. Also then looking at the PlayStation 2, well, that actually ran even better. And again, partly here we're looking at the optimization levels of the actual emulators themselves. So both of these I was running using the Vulkan backend, which of course does give us a little bit better optimization, a little bit more graphics power. But on the PlayStation 2 then, I was able to take that resolution up to 1080p HD. And again, that let me enjoy titles such as we're running here, so Ratchet and Clank size matters. We're running that then, of course, at that full HD resolution, which gives us better graphics than we would have got using an original PlayStation 2. So really impressed with how the machine is coping with that. Now going even further, well, I wasn't quite sure what the MeLE X5 would be able to cope with. So looking at the PlayStation 3, so this is actually getting to the end of what's actually possible with emulation currently. But this little PC was actually up to the job. So here we're playing BioShock at almost full speed. There's a couple of little slowdowns here and there as we jump around scenes. But again, so some of these glitches, it can be hard to say if that's down to the emulator itself or the actual PC. And I do think it's probably a little bit of a mixture of both at this point here, as we are getting to the cutting edge of what can be achieved with retro gaming emulators. Moving on then to the Xbox 360, and this was where I was expecting this PC to fail. But to be honest, it put up a valiant effort. There are two backends that we can use here. So of course we can use the DirectX backend and the Vulkan backend. So running games using DirectX, it did give better compatibility, so we were able to get more games to actually run, but they came in at some very ultra low frame rates. Even some of the easier games to emulate gave us very low frame rates, and it just was not playable at all using that. So switching across to the Vulkan backend, it both improved things and made things worse. So the Vulkan backend on the Xenia emulator is not been fully developed yet. So it is sort of in a very alpha test stage, but it does show a lot of promise. So I did try some of the 2D games, and they actually ran perfectly. So here we're looking at one of my favourite games, which is Limbo, and as you can see, it's running at full speed with no problems at all. The gameplay is exactly as I would expect on my actual real console. But if we do move over to something like Ridge Racer, well, things like the cutscenes and all, they do work well, but as soon as we get up to actual 3D rendering of the tracks and cars and so on, well, that's where the system does bomb out. Now, again, this is probably a combination of an issue with the emulator itself. As I said, the Vulkan backend has not been completely debugged, so we are going to get problems with that. But as I say, when I did sort of try and sort of do a bit of driving in here, I could see that the frame rates, even though we weren't actually rendering things very well on the screen, the frame rates seemed to be okay. So perhaps that gives us a little bit of hope that this PC would be able to cope with it once we get that Vulkan backend working a bit better. So overall then, well, I think this is an amazing little PC. At around £380 for a 16GB model and £480 then for the 32GB model I'm using here. And again, that comes with a 512GB NVMe hard drive. It does give you a powerful, fully functioning computer for both your home or your office in a surprisingly small package, which you can really just hide around the back of your TV and it will just work away there and not get in the way of anything at all. As you've also seen then, as a retro gaming and media PC, this covers pretty much anything you would want to throw at it, right up to the latest emulators for the 7th generation consoles, such as that PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. So please do have a look out for my home gaming and media PC setup video, which I'll be releasing over the next few weeks. Again, once that's released, I will put a link down in the description below, so if that link's there, then obviously I've already made that video. So I hope you found this useful. If so, please do click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more tech reviews, gaming, modding, electronics and making projects. I look forward to seeing you again very soon, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.